Today's live is all about spring energy. Today, we're going to be talking about moving forward, not with this sudden like jolt. Even though we're in this like fire horse energy year, we've been talking about zodiac Chinese New Year just barely wrapped up. We're entering that spring energy, right? But that doesn't mean like going 0 to 60. So, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we've been in this deep wintering. And some people can be coming out of that with a lot of shame and blame and telling themselves they woulda, shoulda, coulda, and had to. Some people might be coming out of it with a lot of, why can't I stay here like the bear in the cave? Like, why can't I just stay in here and just like eat my food and sleep, you know? And so we're going to be talking about moving forward with that, with the spring energy, with the reawakening, and how that's all about recognizing growth. So today is more of a lunch and learn, and then I'll give you some prompts there at the end. And today's theme is you're already growing, but why you and your nervous system may not see it yet, why you may not be ready to see it, why you may not be recognizing it. So there's something that happens during growth that we're going to talk about today. It's something that not a lot of people talk about. And it's how we imagine growth is going to be. Like, we imagine growth as something that we're going to recognize as something that's going to be immediate and extremely known and obvious, right? We think it will feel like absolute clarity, like we know something distinctly now. And while we're using the funk method to add to our knowing, it is something that is like knowing is something that I am totally stealing this from my own therapist because he's brilliant, but knowing can be described as when hindsight becomes insight. So it is kind of like rear view, but in a connected, deep understanding way. So it's not that we're living in the past. It's not that we're analyzing the past. It's that we've been able to go through it, understand it, glean information from it, and bring it forward into our present knowing. So that is why, that knowing moment doesn't feel like an absolute clarity all the time. It doesn't feel like, oh, I know this now, because it's a constant process of bringing forth that feel, deal, reveal, and heal. Those 4 stages of self discovery that I talk about in the BMO guide, like teaching the BMO practice, like that is adding to our knowing. That's what adding to our knowing means. It's not only coming from the inside and our own stories and our own doing the work per se, but it's also coming from sessions like this. Like this, if it speaks to you, if you recognize it, if it's something that paves your path forward, then you're adding to your knowing. That's why I say use your BMO practice with anything that works. Use it with the classes, with the appointments, with the therapy, with workbooks, with self-help books, because all of those things may be working in the moment or at a certain layer. But when you work through the funk method, when you work through the 3 steps of the BMO practice, you're adding it, you're adopting it, you're integrating it, you're understanding it. So knowing and recognition, it can, we think it's going to be clarity. We think it's going to be confidence. We think that we're finally knowing exactly what to do and what that's always going to be, and we're going to do it right or wrong, black or white. Those things, it's not necessarily what it's about, because there are absolutes. And when we're hanging on to absolutes, we're still in that preoperative area. We're still in that sub 10 years old place. We're in the past. We're in our inner child space. We're in that part, right? But the truth is, growth rarely feels that way in the moment. Most of the time, it feels confusing, a little unrecognized, right? It feels slow. And you start to beat yourself up a little bit for that slowness. You start to slide back into the shame and the blame and the needing to, and all of that energy to try to make something happen. You start to slide back into those attachment responses, those behaviors, right? You either shut it down or you blow it up, you know? And it feels uncertain a lot of the times. And sometimes it even feels like we're going backwards in those moments, especially when we have the tendency to slide back, when something is slower than we expect it to be, and we end up just going boop. Like, we have similar responses. Similar does not mean same. If there's anything you add to your knowing today, I want you to add this. Even if you're having a similar response or going to an old place, you are different now. Your awareness of it isn't because it's the same, it's because you are aware now, and that is different. So when you tell yourself you're in the same place and it's happening again, and you're here again and it's all the same, remember, you are different. And the reason that you're recognizing any amount of sameness is because of the difference. So when you're feeling this way and have these things happen, it's not because growth is not happening. It is because your nervous system is built to recognize familiarity, not progress. This is part of that threat to pet that we talk about. It's part of the reason why we remember bad things. We remember bad things more than good things. We remember difficulty more than joy because that's what serves our survival. And we have been surviving as beings for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? So it's part of what's intrinsic to us. The difference is that in today's world, everything is a lot more triggering. Everything feels a lot more unsafe, which is why we've modernized the BEMA practice to be something that can carry you through those modernizations, through the car traffic and the self-driving and the AI response and the working with an international team and the trying to get a promotion and having the family at home and notification, beep, 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 and all the things that just send us into these spirals when they happen so closely and so often, you know? So we go towards familiarity for reasons. We go towards it because we are entering survival. And what the BEMA practice is going to do for you is it's going to help you with understanding the difference between the survival that is needed, that basic like food, shelter, this is really threatening my true way of life versus the mistaken survivals, the spirals, the blowing up or shutting down, the automatic behaviors that we have learned through attachment, trauma, and neglect, repetition. We're going to repeat it a different way. We're going to practice. So your nervous system's job is to scan for what it already knows. Predictable patterns, predictable reactions, predictable environments. Familiar means safe to the nervous system. So when you start changing, even in healthy ways, your system cannot always recognize it as progress. Not yet. Because it wants to be like, is this really happening? That's why you feel that, you know? It wants to figure out, like, am I still in survival? It has a lot of fear in shutting down in a safe way rather than shutting down in a response behavior way, right? Calming versus the shutdown. So it takes a long time for the body to register that this is different. And that mind body integration is getting your mind and emotional state to understand that it's different enough times that your body catches up. Some of us are more body forward and the mind is what feels behind, or the emotion is what feels behind. And it's not, there is no right or wrong way of doing that. You arrive in different orders. We all have different dominoes that fall in different ways, right? We're very interesting and intricate people. But whatever comes in last is just the integration. It's just because it needs that other part of us to be like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Building security, that you can you can water that down to I'm okay, you're okay, we're okay. That starts with your own I and we. That starts with your own internal parts, your shadow, your parts work. It starts with the internal voice before it goes to other people, before you're building security in other relationships. So you have to have that like I and we conversation with yourself for a while before it becomes something that manifests with other people. And as we move through that, the difference feels uncomfortable. That thing that we've was unknown, the place we've never been before, and eventually the place you've never even imagined you would be, the place that is so unimaginable to your former self, your inner child, the part that has lived and survived all of this. You'll start to enter a place you didn't imagine possible. Not that you didn't think you couldn't get there, that you didn't even know there was a thing. That will start to feel really igniting because of the newness. Like the hypervigilance is not going to work at that point because Everything is new. You don't even know how to function in that. So that's why when we're having these healing journeys, we go through the so maybe on average, about a year into using the BMO practice very consistently, you've built secure attachment. You have more security, more voice, more confidence, more strength, more positive knowing than you've ever had before. And you're in the height of like your secure behaviors. It all feels good. But then a lot of things start to come from unconscious to subconscious and subconscious to conscious as a result of that safety and self trust that you've created for yourself through this practice, through the process. And as a result of that, all of a sudden you're challenged in a completely new place and you enter a place you never thought imaginable, this place of complete strength that is also working on completely new things. And you're going to feel like you come off a roller coaster, like you went from security to like the surprise drop in the roller coaster. It's going to feel that way. And your mind and body is going to try to trick you and be like, see, didn't deserve it. It's all the same. It's all over. That was fun. It's over now. It didn't work. It's going to try to tell you all of those things. But there's also going to be a little bit part of you that's like, yeah, but it is different. I know how to work through it. I know how to move through it. I know what to rely on. I know how to rely on myself because I have a structure, I have a process. It teaches me how to process absolutely anything, process more joy, process grief, process planning, process decision. It helps me with everything so I can get through anything. Plus, I've been here before. I've solved these things before. And you start to kind of battle that shadow. That shadow is going to be way higher contrast at that point where you're going to have all this knowing, but you're also, that shadow is going to be just darker and more present than ever in that point of complete newness and high awareness. In that point where awareness becomes awareness. Eckhart Tolle talks about that, the awareness of awareness. And that's where you're in self-actualization, which is Maslow's word for it. Or that's where, in BMO terms, you're adding to your knowing, your absolute knowing. And it's a wonderful place. I promise you'll get there. But as you get there, you're going to feel like you're going backwards. You're going to feel less secure. And you know what? You might be. You probably will be a little bit less secure because it's going to be new. But here's the thing about that healing journey. Like, you're allowed to rock that forward. Like, if you've ever gotten your car stuck in the mud or the snow and like, you know that it requires like a little bit of rocking, a little bit of friction. Like, if you're not from a snowy area, one of the tricks is to put something like gravel or cat litter under the tire, right? Because it needs that friction. It needs something to work against. Where your previous life, you may be working against everything and all odds, and you may be having that that magnetism, that repulsing magnetism in order to define yourself. That's definitely a place I was. I had some distinct toxic relationships in my life that I had become so opposite of that when I finally had the strength and knowing to remove them from my life, to take that out, it felt like I took gravity out of my life. Like I was just free floating and had no idea who I was or how to operate without that opposition in all things. So that's just another example of, what that give and pull and weight is going to be like, and regrounding yourself and refining yourself. It's going to be a little bit of, you see those infographics about like healing journeys. I'll have like spirals and ups and downs. And that's why. And if you ever need help getting through or understanding where it is that you are, that's what the BMO community is all about. Those that are working through their own BMO practice, who are processing their own lives in different ways. Some of them do it as journalers, as writers. Some of them do it out loud as kind of a self-talk therapy. There's not any right modality. There's just the modality. Like, yes, BMO has a journal, but I like to call it as a journal that's not for journalers. As in, you don't have to be a journaler in order to use it. It is a process. It is a way of processing. You can be a creative. You can be a poet. You can be a creative writer. You could be a journaler. You can be all of those things that, the people who typically use a notebook, and you can use the BMO practice in that way, in that notebook. But if you are hesitating to do this for yourself because you're like, oh, it's a journal and I'm not a journaler, Don't do that to yourself. Break that limiting belief right now because it's just a way of processing. You can write through one sentence and then use the funk method to process that one decision, that one self question, that one moment in time. You don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to be somebody who's trying to report on something or safe keep your life or any of these reasons that people typically journal. You don't have to be someone who writes 3 pages. You don't have to be those morning pages person. So let go of what it is to be that person, to have a notebook per se. If you're a person who plans, use the notepad. It's still based on the BMO practice in a totally visual way. Because if you're totally not a writer, then fine. Absolutely use it in that way. Use it as art. There's BMO people like in the community that completely use it as a mix of poetry and art. Like there's no wrong way to meet yourself as long as you allow yourself to get there. So this is essentially why you can be quote unquote doing the work and showing up differently and responding differently and still feel like nothing has changed. Because the moment you pause before reaching, the moment you catch yourself in a pattern, the moment you choose something even slightly different, your nervous system is not celebrating that yet. And this is that mind body integration, right? It is still orienting, it's still learning. Is still trying to understand what on earth is happening. And is this gonna stay? Is this okay? Think about how many years many of us lived in patterns that once helped us survive. Think about how long you've been surviving certain beliefs that you have to earn or that you have to struggle or that you have to win or do it all alone. These limitations, these beliefs, these ways of surviving that you've had, you have practiced them for a long time. Here's the good news, you don't have to practice them for as long to get out of them. Like if you have been 45 years of practicing these things on accident and now you're aware of them, it's not going to take 45 years to get out of them. You can reinforce and you can learn and you can move forward. I like to think of that feel, deal, reveal, and heal as a wheel. And each time you're going through it, that forward movement is just like turning, like voom, voom, voom. It's like inventing the wheel. It's like going back to the beginning of mankind, and you're just like trucking along with your wheel, with your rock, right? Your foundation. And every time you practice, you're practicing that moving forward. And then when it becomes a part of you, that's the beauty of the funk method is it becomes a part of you so much faster, so much more naturally than anything that I have experienced that is out there. That's a reason why the number one people who use and love BMO are all therapists. It is something that is highly adoptable without even trying. You don't have to try to enter your healing journey. You don't have to try to do inner child work. It actually just happens as long as you're showing up with the process and you're processing things. You're processing a variety of things. And once you adopt that into your psyche, the way that you're thinking and talking to yourself, then that wheel is just chucking along without you having to churn it and move it. That's the learning part. It takes a little bit to learn, but it becomes a part of you very, very, very quickly, just with that repetition. And then you just start moving along through anything. So, when you think about those years that you have been in these patterns like working harder, staying quiet, over explaining, taking responsibility for everyone else's emotions, that's what I like to call self assigning. It's enmeshment, codependency, keeping the peace, avoiding conflict, pushing through exhaustion, or trying to control situations so you can feel safe. These patterns were not mistakes. They were intelligent adaptations. There was a reason for them. They helped us function in environments where we had limited control. But over time, what once helped us survive can start to limit us and no longer serves us. It may be something that was our only option as a kid or as a teen or as a young adult. It doesn't mean that you have more options now and life is so much different and you simply earn options by getting older. That's not what that means per se. It's just that perspective and nuance and the capability and getting further into reasoning and self-understanding and awareness that all comes with time. But also there's situations that we don't have control over when we're kids, right? And now is the time to forgive ourselves for how we had to survive and then to realize we don't have to do it this way anymore. So that's where growth begins. Not in the big dramatic moments, but in the subtle shifts. And this is the big part of what we're going to be working on and talking about on this weekend's guided BMO journaling experience. So it's 2 hours of adding to your knowing, learning, and then being guided through the BMO practice. You don't have to have a BMO journal yet, but you'll certainly be among the BMO journal community. Some people who have been doing it for years, some people who haven't bought one yet, some people who are brand new to it. But we're going to be specifically really getting into that sense of enoughness and that sense of when and that sense of, just the subtle shifts of where am I now and is that enough? And what have I revealed in my journey? And what if there's more? We're going to get into all of that. And it's going to be beautiful and powerful. And I love that every single time, there are breakthroughs. I am so lucky to hear about the stories that people reveal to themselves and just to witness the becoming of so many people, especially the people that join these events. They still go through tough times. They have that up here at the roller coaster and then grief and life and loss and things still happen. And it is still hard. And so it starts to be a little bit of a jolt because the last time something very difficult happened, it was a much worse place. So the body and the mind want to be like, it's the same. But that time that they spend gets, slower and slower, like smaller dips, a lot more reasoning, a lot more power. And I get to witness people come back into their power and then just project themselves forward and just the stories and the smiles and the no, even when they do come back into a situation that is really hard. It is such a wonder to be a part of. So growth often looks like pausing when you used to react and saying less when you used to over-explain, but that's not the same as shutting yourself down. Like there are these new nuances. So a pause is not a shutdown. Saying less when you used to over-explain is not because you're need toing yourself. You're not shoulding, woulding, coulding, have to. Like the shame, blame of, "Oh, I just need to talk less." Like, say less, right? Like, you're that whole thing, like, it's not that you're telling yourself to, it's that you no longer have the need to. You're not need to is survival energy. It's reactive energy. It's self-blame and shame energy, which is why we have this whole core discussion in the center of the BEMO practice of not need toing yourself. Like, you don't need to yourself. That energy is what keeps you in place. It keeps you cycling in these tight old patterns. So saying less is because you arrive at this place where you no longer have this need to say more, this need to explain. Does that make sense? So also resting where you used to push. So it's not like I just need to take a break. I just need to rest. You're just adding to your burnout when you need to yourself into this place of rest and then you race forward into doing again. And you just have that like elastic band reaction. So at this point, it's understanding. It's the awareness of awareness. And that's what that's why the very specific order of the funk method that to core me, like, and then the knowing, like all of this, it has shadows. So it deals with shadow work without needing to understand your shadows. And it has parts and it's asking you about your parts without you even having to know about internal family systems and parts work. And it has cognitive behavior and dialectical behavior. It has elements of all of these things, but it's put in an order that is familiar to us and the way that we already think. It's encouraging you to keep going rather than to stick in a spiral or to stick in the, we talked about in other videos, the FU moments and then the fun moments and then the funk moments. Like you have to keep going, right? And you have that order. And it's not a matter of pushing through, it's a matter of arriving. So that's the difference here, resting and pushing, understanding that the need and the when and the how and the why, and you're getting this all from yourself. That's why workbooks can be really, really great in helping you reveal some stories to work on, like self prompt makers, but they don't necessarily heal. They don't necessarily have fully anything to do with you because they can't know you. Even arriving in therapy for an hour each week isn't enough to know you. And so this is why I say therapy is 1 hour, this is the other 167. This is when you get to take yourself, your work, your therapy home with you. No more repressing and regressing. No more exiting therapy and going immediately back into survival because there's work and there's kids and there's groceries and there's you got to get the car fixed and got to get, there's those things that put you right back into survival and have you repress anything that you get to work on hour by hour, week by week. This allows you to stay present with those things. This allows you to build a larger capability of feeling and presence and self-understanding. With each repetition, you're building a reservoir for yourself. This just huge, nourishing, magical thing. This like reservoir of mana that you're just feeding yourself from the energy of knowing. So, growth often also looks like asking for clarity instead of assuming, or setting a boundary instead of absorbing the discomfort. And these shifts can feel strange at first, not because they're wrong, but because they're new. Your nervous system needs time to learn that these new responses are safe, that they are new, that they're staying, that they're the new, that they're reliable, that the world does not collapse when you speak honestly, that relationships can survive boundaries, that you do not have to hold everything together alone, that you can feel something fully without needing to fix it immediately. And if you can identify with any of those things, like drop a comment in, let me know. I want to know where you are right now and what's going on and what resonates with you. That helps me to arrive in a place that helps you and holds you and continues to build this community forward. So if you have been doing the work and still feel uncertain, still feel like you're figuring it out, still feel like you're not quite there yet, that does not mean nothing is happening. It often means the opposite. It means you are in the middle of growth that is not fully registered yet. One of the things I love about the BEMA practice, and not that I'm partial or anything, but I love it. I've learned to rely on it in so many things, and I just will always be talking about the wonderful world that creates for you. But one of the things I love about the BEMA practice is that it helps us slow down enough to see these shifts, to have that self-recognition. That's one of the most powerful parts of the third step, the purposeful positives, that weaving in the I get tos and the gratitudes and the senses of where you are now, that presence and the self-recognition of growth. Every time you arrive back in your purposeful positives, it's not just arriving back in the room and even further grounding, like feet on the ground, presently understanding where you are now, because the funk method does make you travel. You go to places in your mind, in your past, and then you come back so that, the purposeful positives is just a double down on regrounding. But it's more than that. Every time you do it, you're creating space for joy, but you're specifically creating space for joy in the same space in which you just did something very difficult. Because that is building the belief, the knowing, not a belief in limitations, but the absolute knowing that you can do hard things and still find and be in your joy. It's creating, like I talk about this in these fully guided BMO journaling sessions often, about how when we're first starting out, we have like a grand canyon of this is joy and this is pain and this, it's black and white and it's far away and everything you're experiencing feels like this ginormous canyon and you're holding and carrying this huge space. But every time you feel, deal, reveal, and heal, every time you work through the funk method, the practice, every time you rely on it, you come back into your purposeful positives, that grows closer. It grows closer so that you understand, not that it's going faster, closer and faster aren't necessarily the same things. You will arrive more quickly in that subconscious to conscious moment because of the way that you're adopting the funk method, but you're going to be closing in that space so that it feels like so much less. It's not so black and white anymore. It's just, I feel this and I can still this. I can hold all of that space and all of that purpose and all of that knowing. And if you've been practicing for a long time and you're just like, yeah, I want more of that. I want to feel that. I want more of that release. Then my advice to you and my encouragement to you is the places that you cut yourself short, try to go long. If you name just one feeling or one need, try to name the thing underneath that and then underneath that and then underneath that. If you just give yourself one blanket you statement, that in that note, try to write yourself a paragraph, try to write yourself a page, write yourself a letter. So try to go long in the places that you're cutting yourself short. So, where was I in all of this? So if you have been doing the work and still feel uncertain, still feel like you're figuring it out, still feel like you're not quite there yet, that doesn't mean nothing is happening. If it often means the opposite. It means you're in the middle of growth that has not fully registered yet. One of the things that I love about the FEMA practice we've been talking about is that when we pause and write, when we move through these steps, when we let ourselves see what we are feeling and what we actually need, we begin to recognize something very important. Growth is not something we arrive at in one day. It's something that we arrive at day by day. It is something we practice over and over again. And it's because life has so many different situations. You can't just practice one situation and then think that all of them will become easy. Practice it in every style and type of situation. And often the biggest sign of growth is not that life becomes easier immediately. It is that you respond differently than you used to, even slightly. That pause, that awareness, that willingness to see yourself honestly, that is growth. Your nervous system may not recognize it yet, but it is happening. And every time you choose awareness instead of going on autopilot, you're teaching your system something new, something safer, something steadier, something more aligned with who you are becoming. So today we're going to take a few minutes to write about that, not about what still feels hard, but about what might already be shifting. So even if it is subtle, even if it is quiet, even if you're not fully sure yet, because sometimes the most important growth is the kind we only see when we slow down enough to notice it. So I'm going to leave you with a series of prompts here that you can use. There's about 6 of them, and I'll paste them into the recording as well so you can have them. But before I do, I'm going to remind you that we're going to do a really deep dive into this Sunday for a fully guided BMO journaling session. It's going to be so good. I just finished writing the script for it last night. So it's building on this concept of growth and the self-recognition and understanding what to work on and what to stop pushing ourselves towards working on. It's this whole sense of enoughness and when knowing is enough. We're going to be talking all about that, adding to the knowing and allowing ourselves just to notice, to be. It's going to be a great session. And if you're curious about the female practice or you want to take your practice deeper, you want to, work on something different or get through a breakthrough or bring a situation to the table to workshop, I encourage you to join us on Sunday at bmojournal.com/events. Tickets are still available. And with today's session, all about that recognition of growth and, not sliding back into it's all the same, the shame and blame. I'm going to leave you with these journal prompts. So here are your questions to work on with your own BMO practice. The first is, where in my life might growth already be happening, even if it feels subtle? Use this springtime energy. Envision the little initial petals coming out of the soil. And then also know that every time a plant sprouts, those first beautiful little leaves that you see die. They go back in and re-nourish the seed or the bulb for the bigger plant to come forward. So where we are right now in the world, in our life, in this season, is that we are sprouting and nourishing. We're not in this race forward bloom. Not yet. Allow yourself to go slow. Give yourself what I keep calling space and grace. The next prompt is, what is one way I respond differently now than I used to? Give yourself that credit and self-recognition. Even if it's just slightly different, maybe it's not what you want, that sense of perfection. Maybe it's not all the way there yet, but give yourself the credit for how it is different. Another prompt is, a pattern I am beginning to notice is good or bad. Just noticing. The next is, what this shift might be asking of me is. And the need for underneath this growth is. So if you have your needs wheel, your BMO needs wheel, I have a very big one. I'm very proud of it. What's underneath that need for growth? Is it still actually growth? Is it in the growth spectrum? Or in order for you to move forward with growth, is it someplace else? Is it someplace that's going to feed? Like if this were a plant and this were your seed, is growth your soil? Is there something you need that is your sunshine? So look at your needs wheel and see what it is you need to move forward with that growth, that slowness. And then the last prompt is, one way I can continue supporting this change is. So today was a lot to learn. Thank you for letting me talk through it. I hope to see all of you this weekend for our event, and we have a 2-day online retreat in April. So that's 4 sessions across 2 days. We're going to be doing a lot of somatic work. We're going to be recognizing, we're going to be workshopping, we're going to be diving deep. I've been toying with the idea of getting some guest speakers in there as well to share their experience and do some fun activities. So that is also currently on the website, and I hope to see all of you at both of those. And if you have any questions or inspirations, I will be posting this recording and these prompts, the script, this afternoon on Substack for Substack members, and you can drop into the comments and let me know anything you need. Otherwise, it was great to see you, and I will see you this weekend.